Life, my dear little pawn, has always been a casino. A grand, glittering illusion where the tables are rigged, the dice are loaded, and the dealer? The dealer is blind, but only when it's convenient. You were never a player. No. You were the chips, the currency, a commodity to be spent, wagered, discarded when the bet turned sour. See, they put you on the table without your consent, slid you across to fate with a flick of their wrist. Parents, teachers, the system, the ones who smiled and told you it was all for your own good, that this was how the game worked. And you believed them. You played along. You sat there, obedient, as they stacked their bets higher and higher, stacking their choices like fragile towers over a pit of fire. But here's the problem with gambling. Someone always loses, and it was never going to be them. No, they made sure of that. They padded their seats with privilege, stacked the deck in their favor, and ensured their losses with your suffering. A safety net made of your broken spirit, a hedge fund of your wasted years. They rolled the dice on your dreams and told you to be grateful when they came up empty. And then the house burned down. And now they're bankrupt. Not in money. No, that would be too easy. No, they're bankrupt in something far worse. Regret. A hollow, gnawing, bottomless kind of regret that festers in the marrow of their bones. Because you were supposed to be their masterpiece, their success story, proof that they knew what they were doing. But instead, you became the walking evidence of their failure. Look at them now, desperate, panicked, trying to rewrite the past with apologies that taste like rusted pennies. But regret, my dear little pawn, is not a currency that buys redemption. No, it's a weight, a chain, a reminder of every hand they played wrong, every decision they made for you without you. And the best part, the cruelest little twist in this delightful tragedy, they can't undo it. Oh, they'll try. They'll rewrite the narrative, paint over the cracks, convince themselves they were only doing what was best. But deep down, in the quietest corners of their mind, they'll always hear the echoes, the what-ifs and if-onlys whispering like ghosts in the walls. Because the truth is a parasite. It burrows in, it festers, it devours from the inside out. And you? What are you left with? Years spent chasing dreams that weren't yours, decisions made with hands that weren't your own, a life built on someone else's ambition. Tell me, does that sound fair to you? But fairness, that's a funny little word, isn't it? A comforting bedtime story for the naive. Because the ones who gambled with your life never cared for fairness. Fairness was never part of the deal. The moment they placed their bet, they knew exactly what they were doing. They just never thought they'd lose. But now they see the wreckage. And they wonder, if they could turn back the clock, would they play it differently? Would they let you hold the cards this time? Would they ask before they bet everything on a future that was never theirs to wager? It doesn't matter now. The chips have fallen. The game is over. And the debt? Oh, the debt is something they will carry for the rest of their days. A debt that no apology, no grand gesture, no desperate act of redemption can erase. But let's talk about you for a moment, shall we? The one left standing amid the ruins. The one they never thought to prepare for. You see, they never expected you to wake up, to see through the smoke and mirrors, to realize that you were never powerless. No, You were simply led to believe you were. That was their biggest mistake. Bigger than the gambling, bigger than the arrogance. They spent so long playing God with your future, they forgot one crucial detail. Even gods can fall. And when they do, the ones they tried to keep beneath their heel will be the ones standing at the top. You were never weak. They only made you think you were. It was all part of the game. Keep you distracted, keep you dependent, make you think the only way forward was through them. Because if you ever realized the truth, if you ever saw just how much power you really had, the whole system would crumble. But now, the illusion is broken, the spell is lifted, and they are left staring at the mess they made, drowning in the weight of their own choices. And you stand on the other side of it all, staring back. And that's where things get interesting, isn't it? Because now you have a choice. Oh, it's ironic, isn't it? The very thing they denied you for so long is now firmly in your hands. The future, the direction, the next move, it's all yours. You are no longer a chip on the table, no longer a pawn in their grand little scheme. You are the dealer now. And the rules? The rules are whatever you decide they are. The ones who gambled with your life, they're watching, waiting, hoping. They want to know if you'll play the game the way they did, if you'll become what they were, if you'll make the same desperate, selfish bets that left them ruined, or if you'll do something far more terrifying, if you'll refuse to play at all. Because that's the thing about games, my dear little pawn. They only hold power if you sit at the table, if you choose to participate. But what happens? What happens when you push the chair back, stand up, and walk away? What happens when you decide you're done being a piece on someone else's board? That's the real question, isn't it? That's the move they never saw coming. That's the moment they realize. They didn't just lose the game, they lost you. So tell me, what's your next move? Because the moment you realize you hold the cards now, that's when the real fun begins. They lost you, not just as a player, but as a prize, as a pawn, as a certainty. Because for so long, they thought you would always be there, sitting at the table, playing by their rules. But now you're not even on the board, and nothing terrifies them more than a piece they can't control. So what do? They scramble, they backtrack, they rewrite history, paint themselves as victims of circumstance, architects of good intentions. Because that's the thing about regret. It doesn't like to sit quietly. It claws, it gnaws, it demands an explanation. And so they spin their tales, convincing themselves that they only did what was necessary, that it was all for your own good, that somehow you misunderstood. But you didn't misunderstand. You saw it for what it was, a rigged game, a performance where they pulled the strings and you danced on command. And now that you've cut the strings, they are the ones left dangling, suspended in a web of consequences they never expected to face. And oh, how the panic sets in. They call it love, they call it protection, they call it responsibility. But deep down, beneath the words, beneath the justifications, there's only one truth: control. They never raised you to be free. They raised you to be obedient, predictable, a reflection of their own ideals, their own insecurities, their own failures wrapped in the illusion of guidance. But you're not their reflection. You never were. You were a wildfire, a storm, a force they never quite knew how to contain. And now they see it. Now they realized that all their careful planning, all their carefully laid traps, all their bets placed on who you would become, it was all for nothing, because you are not what they expected, not what they molded, not what they thought they had ensured. And the irony, the grand, delicious irony, it was never their game to win in the first place. See, they thought they were playing chess, but you were playing something far older, something far more dangerous, something they never even bothered to understand. You weren't following their strategy. You were learning the terrain, watching, waiting, preparing for the moment when their illusion cracked and the truth came pouring through the fractures. And now, here they are, exposed, vulnerable, desperate for you to come back to the table, to pick up the pieces, to pretend like none of this ever happened. Because that's what they fear most, not losing. No, losing is part of the game. They can stomach that. What they can't stomach is irrelevance, is realizing that you've moved beyond them, that their words no longer shape your choices, that their approval no longer dictates your worth. Because for the first time, they are looking at you and seeing something they cannot manipulate. And that is a horror beyond comprehension. So they try to rewrite the ending. They try to make you doubt, try to whisper in your ear that you're making a mistake, that without them, you'll falter, you'll fail, you'll regret. They prey on the fear they planted in you so long ago, the fear of the unknown, the fear of standing alone, the fear of stepping into a world without their guiding hand. But here's the thing about fear. It only has power if you bow to it. And you're done bowing. You see, they always thought the game was about winning, about control, about who held the most pieces, who dictated the most moves. But what they never realized is that the real power lies in walking away, in refusing to play, in recognizing that the board they built was never the world, it was just a tiny little cage disguised as a battlefield. And now you are free, free to make your own rules, free to set your own path, free to exist beyond their expectations, their limitations, their carefully orchestrated plans. And them, they are left behind, clinging to a game that no longer matters, clutching at pieces that have lost their meaning. So tell me, do you hear that? The silence, the absence of their control, their demands, their scripted future. It's terrifying, isn't it? To them, at least. But to you, it is the sound of possibility, the sound of something they never wanted you to understand. Power. Not the kind that lords over others, not the kind that seeks to dominate. No, this is something far greater. This is the power of self, of autonomy, of knowing that from this moment on, every decision, every choice, every step you take is yours alone. And that is something they can never take back, no matter how much they wish they could. Because in the end, the greatest twist of all is not that they lost the game. It's that you never needed to play it in the first place. But here's what they don't realize. The game was never about pieces on a board. It was about sight, about perception, about who could see beyond the illusion and who remained trapped within it. And while they spent their lives believing they were the masterminds, the puppet masters, the ones pulling the strings, you were quietly unraveling the entire tapestry, thread by thread, decision by decision, because that's the true power, isn't it? Not to destroy, not to conquer, but to walk away, unshackled, untouched, with nothing but the vast horizon ahead of you. And now, for the first time, you are the author of your own story. So the question is, what will you write next? Will you look back? Will you hesitate, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you should have stayed, should have played along, should have let them believe they still held the reins? Or will you do what they never dared? Will you step forward into the unknown, into the expanse of possibility, into the life they tried so hard to keep from you? They'll call it reckless. They'll call it selfish. They'll tell stories about you in hushed whispers, painting you as lost, misguided, a cautionary tale. Because to them, a person who walks away from their control is dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the order they spent their whole lives trying to enforce. But that's not your burden to carry. Not anymore. You see, there's something liberating about reaching the edge of the world they built for you and realizing there's more beyond it. That the boundaries they swore were absolute were just lines drawn in sand, waiting for the tide to wash them away. And now? Now you are the tide. They'll watch from the sidelines, waiting for you to stumble. They'll wait for the moment you come crawling back, hands outstretched, ready to beg for a place at their table again. Because in their world, every escape is temporary. Every act of rebellion is just a prelude to submission. But they don't know you. They never did. Because if they did, they would have seen it coming. They would have recognized the moment the chains broke. They would have known that the person walking away isn't the same one they spent years trying to mold. You are something else now. Something untouchable, uncontainable. And that terrifies them more than anything. Because here's the thing about control. It only works when the other person believes in it. When they accept the rules, the hierarchy, the invisible walls keeping them caged. But what happens when someone stops believing? When they wake up and realize that the walls were never real? That the power they feared was nothing more than a ghost story whispered in the dark? What happens when you don't just break free, but never look back? They'll scramble to redefine you, to reshape the narrative, to find some way, any way, to convince themselves that you are the one who lost. Because if you aren't, if you're out there, thriving, breathing in a world they never dared to step into, then that means they were wrong about you, about themselves, about everything. And they can't afford that. So they'll rewrite history, dress up their regrets in righteous indignation, and pretend that your absence doesn't gnaw at them like a phantom limb. But you have no reason to correct them, no need to justify, no desire to engage, because you are too busy living. For the first time, the weight they placed on your shoulders is gone. The expectations, the obligations, the endless cycle of approval and disappointment, it all crumbles into dust behind you. And what's left in its place is something unfamiliar, something intoxicating, something they never wanted you to taste. Freedom, the kind that doesn't ask permission, the kind that doesn't seek validation, the kind that moves forward without apology, without hesitation, without the need to explain itself to those who never truly listened in the first place. Because the truth is, they never built you up. They never guided you, nurtured you, protected you. They caged you. They trimmed your wings and told you that flight was impossible. They convinced you that the world beyond their reach was cruel, cold, unforgiving. But they were wrong. The world isn't cruel. It isn't kind either. It simply is. Vast, unwritten, waiting, and now, so are you. So let them talk. Let them mourn the version of you they thought they knew. Let them whisper and wonder and try to make sense of something they were never meant to understand. Because, in the end, the greatest act of defiance isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It isn't even proving them wrong. It's silence. The absence of your need for their approval. The quiet certainty of your steps as you walk away. The knowledge that for the first time in your life, you are not running, not escaping, not reacting. You are simply moving forward. And that is a power they will never comprehend. So step forward, step without fear, without hesitation, without the lingering shadow of their expectations trailing behind you. Because the story ahead is yours now.